did we have a microphone?
I think Tim had
Yeah,
a
Tim,
first.
you're first. You had the first question. Yeah. Before you fall asleep.
No.
We have a mic if you want to come up.
I got a loud voice. It's okay.
Tim Lou, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi. Jasper, Peter, Dennis, Phil, thank you for putting this together, bringing us together. Amazing. My question has to do with the soundtrack and new use in your proposal. So currently in the AFM theatrical, the producers have a couple of tiers that they can opt into, right? They can do a 10K, so 10,000 units they can purchase, or they can go to 20,000, 50,000, or 100,000, or one thing that the contractors hate, which is 15K no pay, right? So I was just wondering, in your proposal, your 100,000 and then 10% licensing, where's that 100,000 come from? How did you derive that number, and thoughts?
We actually looked at a lot of different numbers, and to be honest with you, we looked at that. We said, it's really kind of a number. We looked at since most product is not physical product any longer. Try to look at what were reasonable streaming amounts. It's just a number. It can be any number. It's like I said. These are a proposal. If somebody felt that that's just too generous, it could be anything else. But it's not that's one of the numbers. It's not like such a hard, fast number. We didn't really look at this and say it has to be 100,000 units. 100,000 downloads or whatever kind of metric you want to use with it. So that's one of the areas that really was kind of the most flexible on our thinking.
I find, and I would love to hear from other people too, that 15K no pays actually rarely get upgraded. So in most cases, we're not getting anything.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was part of it. I mean, like I said, in my experience, I mean, when I first started, the soundtracks, people were making $1 gazillion on soundtracks, literally. But Frozen's, the Disney, certain projects, the Minions, whatever these things are, that's usually when they're going to release a bigger soundtrack. And it feels a bit punishing because to me, soundtrack should be a way we honor our composers and a way that we're promoting what we do. I mean, we're promoting our incredible musicians, and I don't see the value. I mean, to scare an entire industry away because I can make $5,000 on a soundtrack once makes no sense to me. So I just figure, what can we do? Again, these are all thoughts. I mean, everyone here is much smarter than we are. It can be anything you want, but I think the most important thing is, when I was looking at this, I'm a very competitive person. You can ask my wife. I was looking at how do we kick London's butt? How do we make this so people want to work here? And so this just seemed to be a really easy fix for that.
Really about simplifying things, really to just get rid of the tiers to work up to that point. On the SAG side of things, we mirrored the AFM to some extent. We mirrored the 15,000 free units waiver, with the preface that, well, this is what you're used to and this is what you're doing. But in some cases, 15,000 units actually could be within striking distance. And there could be a number of things that aren't upgraded that should be. It is a bit of the honor system, right? And it is Hollywood. So really it was just simplifying, Tim, just to try to obliterate these things and just put it at a level at which it wasn't even going to cross their minds. Because they knew that at that point, if they're selling above 100,000, hey, whatever you need. And you could tie in with that, of course, obviously the necessity, the requirement for credit and the requirement for union logos and such as it currently exists. And really, who doesn't want that calling card out there with your name and with the logo? And I think that, at least from the singer's side of things, is worth as much as any $100, $200 check or whatever might be generated. It was really a simplification and getting rid of lower tiers.
Mark.
Yes.
Of course you may. Is this mic on, Connor? Thank you.
So for,
Yeah, it's on. It's on, Mark.
fine. So first of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for inviting me. I want to say that I love where we've ended up at the end of this presentation, which is people need to get involved with the RMA, people need to come to Local 47, people need to have their voices heard inside our union. And I can tell you that I am making a firm commitment that we are going to be having town halls at Local 47. We are going to invite people into these conversations. We're going to be having meetings at the local that aren't like our local general membership meetings where you have to sit through 50-year pins and minutes and all that kind of stuff. We want to have these conversations within our union. And I really love the fact that we ended up with, this is the venue for the conversations that can actually move the decision makers within our union, which is within our union. So come on in. And Peter, come on in. But I also want to say that there are a range of ideas here. Some of them are things that are, as you know that with our sound recording labor agreement, like your sound recording code, we already have licensing provisions for licenses that are below a certain threshold. Those kinds of things are definitely things to be talking about. The partial scoring issue is one that the AFM has been working with the RMA Research Committee to research specifically in order to pursue a signatory arrangement with Netflix, because President Gagliardi has met with Ted Sarandos and has talked about the prospect of their becoming a signatory in exchange for being able to have a more generous partial scoring provision available to them. But we also need to know that if you give something to Netflix, the rest of the companies are going to get it. If you give something to Lionsgate, the rest of the companies are going to get it. I know that we've had conversations about a really firm commitment not to have things cannibalized in the course of pursuing different kinds of changes. I think there's sometimes a little confusion about what's signatory and what's not. In the sort of modern day and age, and the current process of films and TV scoring, so many times there's actually no signatory company. It's simply a payroll assumption agreement. And so the payroll assumption agreement is with a company that has no relationship with the AFM. The AFM doesn't know who they are. A company that has no relationship with the Secondary Markets Fund. The fund doesn't know who they are. I was looking at a TV show, I'm inside the building at Local 47 now. I'm not just an RMA guy. It's like now I have the keys to the kingdom of all of our contracts inside the building. So it's a TV show, and we're trying to figure out who to contact to talk about some of the stuff going on with it. And the production company that signed an assumption agreement with the payroll service never signed anything with the AFM. It's the payroll service that's signing with the AFM using their signatory license. And this production company is clearly a non-union, distaff wing of a foreign subsidiary of Warner Brothers. They're non-signatory. But we're doing this show AFM. So it's like, what's going on? So I call Roxanne Castillo at the Film Fund. It's like, you guys must know who the underlying producer is. Well, they don't know. They don't really care. All they care is that the company that's making good on the residual piece is actually making good on it. So we have a really surprising amount of projects that we work on that, like Pixar, might not be signatory at all. And if you give something to companies that aren't signatory, then other companies will be able to use that as well. Suddenly, everything will become independent production. So I would be very, very concerned about some of the elements of what's presented here, and I would be very interested in conversations about other elements of it. And I'm gonna go back to what I started with. I invite everybody into the building to talk, because I really appreciate this fundamental approach of come into the RMA, come into the AFM, and talk to us, and we're gonna make a place for people to talk. So thank you.
I do want to say one thing to you, Mark. There's no doubt what you're saying is true. In this proposal, there would be a sunset clause. This would not be something that would be, just here we go. And, I'm going to say this because I'm a businessman. If this paid off, if this flooded the market with work, why is that a bad thing? So if the signatories go, hey, this is great, we want the same agreement, and it's generating more and more work, and to Dennis's point, it's a different way, it's a reset, it's thinking of things differently. What we have right now, at least in our research, is not working. I mean, I know that a few things, it's great, Oppenheimer, woohoo, I work on some films and I'm really thrilled about it. I make probably more secondary markets than everyone here, and I'm willing to give it up because I feel like if we don't, we won't get these projects to come back, because these are not just one or two people saying these things. This is a whole community. And so I respect and hear what you're saying, but I just say, I think sometimes you have to take risks to gain something. And that's where I think we are.
So I welcome the conversations, and I welcome the analysis, and I welcome the reviewing of data, and I welcome the reviewing of sort of labor relations. The sunset clause thing makes me super nervous, because we know from hard experience that once you open a door, you can't ever close it again. I remember when the pandemic began and none of us could go into the studio. RMA brought a proposal to the AFM to give a momentary waiver for the cost of remote recording. And even though the contract says that if you are recording alone, you get paid as a leader, you get paid twice, you get leader pay, we prevailed on the AFM to say, listen, people have no choice but to record individually, remotely. Give the studios a break so that they continue to employ people. And the AFM said yes. And they wrote a letter that was distributed to all the companies. And then we started being able to record in person, and the AFM sent a letter around saying, wait a minute, you can't do that anymore. You need to follow the contract now and pay people twice if they're recording remotely. And it still hasn't been completely unwound. It caused a huge amount of conflict and sort of, not misinformation, but poor information flow. It ended up being a really problematic process. Once you give somebody something, it's almost impossible to take it back. So anyway, I don't mean to express any of this in a spirit of conflict. I very much appreciate what everybody's doing here. And I just want to engage and have people come and engage with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I know that about you, and I appreciate that.
So I just want to say, too, one thing to that is, that all that is true, but we have heard these arguments before. When we did the first low-budget film agreement, the hue and cry was, if we do this, every picture from now on is going to be low budget. We're never going to work for the full scale again. And it took a huge amount of sales work to really make that happen, and it was a success. I'm not saying that all these are great ideas. These are all ideas. But I think the important thing is we have to do something. It's really easy to talk about all the reasons, all the fears that we have, all the bad things that can happen. But we see what's happening right now. We're on a downward slope, and I think the time has come. We need to do something. If this is not it, something should be, and I think there are some solutions. So the message here is, together we need to find something to do, and we need to do something.
So just one other little thing, as somebody who actually sees the data Local 47, I know this doesn't speak to New York or other recording centers. At Local 47, motion picture wages are going to be slightly over $1 million higher in 2025 than they were in 2024. That's not to say that we don't have a need to keep looking. I want to hear about the tax credit proposal. As you know, I went to the fundraiser for Juan Camacho, who's somebody that we knew from when he was a lobbyist at Fox. I want to hear about the legislative solutions that we can find. When a film goes off to London and they tell us, oh, they can't bring some of it that they were supposed to do here back, because they would be sacrificing $59 million in tax credits in London, we could work for free and not upset that. So, I want us to keep talking about this.
So, and this, you're right, the solutions, I don't think there's no one magic bullet. A tax credit alone is not a magic bullet. An independent film agreement alone is not a magic bullet. But I think the idea is to find, holistic approaches and find all these different component parts that we really can make things work here. That's what this is really about, and have that discussion.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you so much for having us. I'm actually coming here on behalf of President Tino Gagliardi. And the one thing I want to lead with is we are extremely interested in doing what we can to have more production work domestically and in particular in California. And towards that end, in my role, I'm the organizing director for the International Union for the US and Canada. And my number one thing is, how do I look at getting more signatories into that? I mean, that literally is the charge that I've got. But to that end, I'm proud that I've hired an assistant director who is LA based, who's gonna really be coordinating a lot of our mobilization efforts across all the California locals, or particularly around the work we wanna do in Sacramento, and having us to be much more involved in a way that we hadn't been before. While also the work that we're doing with the Entertainment Union Coalition and our other labor partners around that. That's and on behalf of Tino, I want to really extend that is our interest, and we're putting resources into doing that. The other thing, though, that I think that has to be that we have to ask is, this all seems great, but what? And this is me as an organizing director. Do we have any, other than an anonymous letter, do we have any decision makers of these independent studios who have said, we would commit to doing this, or do we then end up with reducing our standard and not having anything to show for it? So that, and then the other thing that, as I'm sure that we're acutely aware of, that as I'm sure you saw, in the second slide that you showed of non-signatories, the relationship between many of those non-signatories and some of our signatories is the separation is theoretical at best, right? And what's to prevent Disney from using some of their subsidiary groups on there to have all of the scoring done through that, and to weaken our agreement in that? So those are the things that we have as considerations. But again, we're happy for the discussion, and look forward to having it with you.
I appreciate it. I mean, I will say, Tino, I've set up meetings with heads of music departments, and he's been very good about meeting with people. I mean, I think we all can say that the past people who have been serving in these roles have kind of damaged our community quite a lot. And I think this is a town about relationships. So I really encourage all of you guys to meet with the people who do hire us, who are our employers, to build a better relationship, because they really think of you guys as central casting, like 1950, get me the mob boss who's going to come and scare me away. And I think it's really important that they see who you are and who Tino is, and get these things together. And I encourage Mark and Laura and everyone to do the same. And I'm happy, and I'm sure Tim is, and anyone, to help you guys make inroads with our employers. But I do feel for this community, especially the younger sect of this community, something does need to happen now. And we need to gain work. I'm not sure what the road is. We're just, again, proposing things, but we need to. There's too many people hurting, and unless they make Behemoth 2, 3, 4, and 5 back to back, we're not going to have a lot of work here. I mean, I'm telling you, as a contractor, it doesn't look that busy for the next 6 months. So I'm concerned about that.
I think another point to make, though, is that what you're concerned about is the signatory companies taking their product and filtering to their non-union company. Right now, they're doing that, and those are non-union productions. Would we be better off if we took those productions and filtered them to their other subsidiary company or the company controlled, but they were union projects? Exactly. And that's really part of what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Dave.
I don't mean to be overly simplistic about it, and I have a fraction of the knowledge and experience as the two gentlemen here on the stage. But if one of the big concerns, not to oversimplify again, is that what if we do something that makes such good business sense that all the other studios will want to do it? I think that's a good thing. ultimately. And really, as I've said before in the town hall, as I've said in negotiations with SAG and AFTRA, it's if what we're proposing, if what we're trying to do does not make good business sense, we are wasting our time. That is what makes this world go round, and we either are part of that engine or we are not part of that engine, and it has to make good business sense. And in my opinion, the proposals, the ideas that we've worked on and strategized and tried to put forward, I think make pretty good damn sense.
Is it? I can't see you. Oh, Reggie Wilson, my mentor.
This is way overdue. Let me just get right to it. The stuff that works, that you have up there, is absolutely what we should be doing. First of all, we should, the idea of promulgating contracts, absolutely. I don't particularly care whether it upsets folks that have done stuff the other way. The thing is, with a promulgated contract, what you can do, you can set up a promulgated contract. You say, this is how we're going to do this for this picture, or for these two pictures. And what you end up with is a finished deal. And then you can look at it and go, did that work here? Did it work there? Okay, we'll make this change. We'll do another promulgated contract, and we'll make this change. After you've done that for 2 years, guess what you have? An idea of where the industry really is and what they will really pay for. And I guarantee you, Disney, Fox, everybody else, if they're going to make the same amount, if they're going to pay the same amount and get the same, they will stay here. Yeah. They aren't going over, London has great players. I've had more than one composer tell me it's work. Where they work so much that their sound is so harmonious and locked in from the second they walk in. The reason we don't sound like that right now is because we aren't working enough. If we lose for a minute up front, we will get it back if we start working. Work is the key. That's it. Nothing else. Whatever we have to do to get people to start working here is what we do. Promulgated contracts, sneaking in the back door, I don't particularly care. But we need to start getting work done. Those ideas up there, that stuff, the licensing for records use, we did that for the sound recording and for the way we use records in our films. We came up with that idea of doing that based on a license fee. Absolutely. If people know business works on certainty, if they know that they can get this money, if they can get this music for X amount of dollars, they cannot stand it if then there's another $25,000 fee attached on the back of it. It should be a percentage of the fee. That's something they can add in and move on. They will do the deal, and they've done it. They licensed so much. We were losing so much money based from the sound recordings, from the records that they stopped using in film because they couldn't estimate the cost. When we changed that practice, all of a sudden records are back in everything. Folks, I'm telling you, what we need to do, the next thing you guys need to start, you need to get on your phones and start calling your RMA guys and your union guys every day and say, we want some promulgated contracts. This you can do. Just ring Mark's phone up. Ring it up 100 times a day until they start saying, yeah, okay, we're gonna see if we can promulgate a contract. We'll see if we can do that.
323-573.
That's it. Start the process. If we can get stuff on paper, we can start working again. I'm telling you. But you've got, as long as the union doesn't get in the way of that, that will be the next key. If we say we've got a promulgated contract that we're going to change this, we don't want to ask for that, and it will be for this, it is a singular deal for this film. We want to do this. We cannot have the union then say, no, you can't. And Peter, you know well. That's the key. When we promulgate these contracts, when you say we want to do this deal with this independent guy who is ready to hire 50 people for 3 days, we want to do the deal. Do the deal. A lot of you don't know me, just so I understand all the intricacies of how these things work in negotiation. I was part of the negotiating committee for the last 20 years, so I understand that stuff. And this is still the best way to go. Okay?
Thank you, Reggie Wilson.
I think Paul Jackson had a
Paul
question or
Jackson.
a comment.
Yeah, Peter, you got me feeling a certain kind of way because you called me and Dan geezers, but I'll get over it. You had mentioned what happened in Detroit, and it's interesting because I have a lot of friends, a litany of friends, whose parents worked at car factories. Well, I'm sure you guys, a lot of you saw the movie Roger and Me, where the president of GM sent all the jobs to Mexico and laid off 65,000 people when his salary was $57 million a year and GM was having a record year. And I just want to say I applaud a lot of these ideas, especially the tax credits, anything you can do, because I learned a long time ago, and I learned this from Ndugu Chancellor, who learned this from Miles Davis. He said, if you pay people correctly, they'll always be there for you, and there's enough money for everybody. And what you have to figure out a way to do is not appeal to people's sense of goodness, people's sense of kindness, people's sense of being altruistic. You have to appeal to their sense of greed and say, look, guys, you'll make more money, figure out a way to make them tax credits, et cetera, to make them feel like they'll make more money doing it here than anywhere else. And so I applaud you. Any ideas, I'm going to join Kappa, and any ideas we can come up with to appeal to people's sense of greed so the work will come back here. And Reggie, I gotta disagree with you because I work with Charlie Bisharet not as much as I like, and from the downbeat, we're always locked in sync. And, so this is the best band anywhere.
Thank you, Paul. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Tim?
Yeah. I have a comment question for Mark Sazer. I just want to make sure I understand really clearly what you were saying about the payroll assumption agreement. It sounded to me that you view it as not a good thing in the comments you were making. Can you just speak on that?
I'm describing a reality without any judgment. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just a reality that with the payroll assumption agreement, neither the AFM nor the Film Fund can identify a producer as truly signatory, non-signatory in many cases. So it just is what it is. It's not a judgment of any decision makers or any entity or anybody. Thank you for asking the question so I can clarify that. I did not mean it that way.
In my reality,
Yeah.
it has been a saving grace to a lot of the work.
Uh-huh.
So just want to.
Yeah,
So-
and it might be something, I might well agree with you, but, it's like, I don't know it from your side of the business, but it just makes it, so when we do data at the local, which I think we do for these purposes, maybe more effectively than either the fund or the AFM, when we do data, it means that we can't really tell whether something is signatory or not, so it makes it more difficult to evaluate some of these ideas.
I just want to point out that it's interesting because probably prior to 1989, what was happening is independent companies were using payroll companies to basically the same degree, but there was no assumption agreement. And there was no obligation to make any payments. And so what happened is those payments just fell through the cracks. Now, I will say, at least during the time I was running the Film Musician Secondary Markets Fund, we had, we tracked every one of the independent producers. We knew how to find them. I don't know why that's so hard to do. I mean, obviously the payroll companies know how to find those people because they have to get paid from them and they know who they are. So, I mean, we should be able to identify who's the appropriate person to pay. And a large number of those companies pay voluntarily. I mean, but we did have to do a lot of audits of those companies and track them down.
I think there's a little disconnect here. What I mean is something where, for whatever reason, a signatory company is using a non-union wing or another company for
Oh, I see what you
purposes.
mean.
And so, sure, the film fund knows who that entity is, but can't commit. If you're in SAG-AFTRA, or if you're in the Writers Guild, or even if you're in the Cinematographers Guild, you know, there are banks of researchers, certainly in the Directors Guild, who follow the corporate, you know, sort of the trails to find out who the ultimate producer is. In our business, because of this structure, it's just the way it is. We can't do that. So it makes it, I mean, the takeaway from this has nothing to do with judging the system or judging the people. The takeaway is it's more difficult for us to evaluate this.
You know, I think, you know, there's good points, and that was exactly the reason for the buyer-distributor assumption agreement, you know, which we have, you know, to actually, you know, get the independent producer back. But the beauty of this is we won't have to track those people down. The people who are actually using this agreement would be the people who would be responsible for any other payments. I mean, I realize there's no secondary market payment except for the licensing fee, which we really could see that becoming, you know, a major component to the fund. So, you know, I mean, I think there are ways to work this out and really, you know, and there are also ways to streamline that process with the assumption agreements as well.
Can I ask one more question? I'm
Sure.
sorry, I don't want to.
Yeah, Whit
let
had a-
somebody else go first. Yeah.
When,
What is the significance of being a signatory company? Like, what does that even mean?
So if you're Universal Pictures, you've, along with the rest of the AMPTP companies, represented by all of their banks of attorneys and Reggie.
yeah,
And they've signed a 3-year commitment to be part of the AFM film and TV agreements. And so they are term signatories. Now, anybody that signs on for a single project, you know, a Pixar film or a Lucasfilm Star Wars film, and I think we should all be a little bit nervous that Kathleen Kennedy is now leaving Lucasfilm, but they can sign on as a signatory, but just for one project. So the independent production stuff we do, they sign. It used to be back in the day there was a separate independent producers agreement that the AFM had people sign on to. Now they sign on to a single project letter of agreement to the main agreement, and so they're just signatory for one contract. But generally, when we talk about signatories, they're the ones that are signatory for the full term of the contract.
So what if you're not a signatory?
Then if you're not a signatory, you have the right to do whatever you want without regards to the AFM at all. So in some cases, they sign the agreement because it gives them access to us or for whatever reason. The Thursday Murder Club was completely Netflix. It was all shot in the UK. We scored it here, and it was completely independent production.
Through a payroll assumption agreement.
Thank you, and brilliant.
Yeah.
And, or likewise, some of the Lucasfilm stuff, some of the, you know, virtually all of the Pixar stuff, with the example of, with the exception of one that was actually sort of Scottish themed. So it's, you know, the questions about why something, independent production stuff we do here on contract, and much of it we don't. Questions, and I love this conversation.
anyone else have anything? Yes, Sammy.
Yes, please, this is the time. Again, I think there's been a previously voiced concern that perhaps if there were leadership of associations and unions present, that things might not be said or said a certain way, or if something like this is put on by a major contractor, that people would be afraid to say one way or agree one way or the other. That is not the case here. This is an encouragement of dialogue, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly of it. What we need is honesty, and what we need is communication, whether we want to hear it or not, and that's what tonight is all about. So please, please say something and bring those questions forward. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I think my generation feels scared to say anything because you get blacklisted. You know, you say something about the pension, you say something about this or whatever. That's what I feel like I'm worried about. Anyways, what's important to me, and I hope it's important to other people, is health care, is the health and welfare contribution. And I find myself at the end of every year, it's like, okay, I have some with the union, I have some with Flex Plan, and Like it's never enough in each, but together I would get some sweet union plan or some sweet flex plan. Now, the wages that were up there were just the wages, so there's like pension on top of that and health and welfare on top of that, so that number is probably even more than what it costs to score in London, because they get socialized healthcare. Anyways, I'm rambling, but I want to know if there's a way to sort of like pick and choose with, are these health and welfare contributions going to the flex plan, or are they going to go to the local?
Can I offer a little something late-breaking news in regards to that question? So, the past 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was sitting next to Tino at Proskauer at the sound recording labor agreement negotiations with the major record labels. And one of the proposals that the AFM brought into the negotiations was how to get the record agreement, this SRLA, to provide not just like $1 or $2 more, but to provide actual meaningful health care for people to work under the agreement. And it's more complicated because fewer people actually make most of their livelihood. It's a small number of people who actually make most of their livelihood under the SRLA. So the labels were kind of collaboratively spitballing with us about how to do it. And they offered, well, maybe we could take, I mean, this is maybe in the weeds for some people, but I find this super exciting. They were saying maybe we could take a little sliver of the streaming revenue money that goes into the sound recording special payments fund and provide that for healthcare for people. So we started talking about it, and then we started talking about the flex plan. And maybe the flex plan can be something where people can get more dollars on the flex plan side, and those dollars are portable. There are other benefits to getting dollars that way as opposed to Local 47's plan. Maybe not, we can look at it. Long story short, Tino appointed a committee to do a study of the possibility of the flex plan, both for sound recording and for touring, because it's a lot of the same people working for the same artists. I'm on that committee, and I really want to talk to you and talk to people about, kind of how we can help people use the dollars that are available in a more meaningful way to get real healthcare coverage. It's super important.
Oh, thank you. But this plan, like, is that, where's that going to pay into?
So this plan has a health and welfare component, so there'll be a contribution. How that's divided up and how it's allocated really will have to become, part of the discussion with the union. That's really, it is, as Mark's pointed out, it's very complicated because we have, once upon a time when we had motion picture industry health plan, that was a very robust plan and people were working, we had coverage there, and then the local had its own standalone plan. We still had some of the same problems, but not nearly to the degree we have now, and it's a bigger problem. But that really is something how the union is going to address that. And each local that has a plan, not very many local unions have health and welfare plans. So it really that's a discussion really you have with the union, and then this would be geared to funnel that money however the union best saw fit to really be able to allocate that and cover it. So.
Right on. We're all going to the Cheesecake
after
Factory
party.
at Paul. Cheesecake on Paul. So Sam, part of what, again, this is as whatever you guys want, Paul's buying. All of us who have to do budgets, all the contractors, all the copyists know this. When you're competing against London, they have, their health and welfare, pensions, all paid by, the government. There's no payroll taxes. So to make it something that would make sense, we felt giving the most in wages was better because then it gave the individual the choice to do their own health care if they needed to. There's still a component, but it's a little less, at least what we're proposing, as is the pension, because to me, I think at least the people I know, are investing in their own health care or their own pension plans and give them the choice. We just want to make sure people can live here if we, do this.
Yeah.
So I hear you. And maybe to Mark's point, maybe that's part of the negotiation. Maybe in lieu of a secondary markets, maybe there's a a bump in pension or health and welfare or something else that could benefit people. Again, this is all open for discussion. That's why this is really important. And we just want you guys to be able to, what was your number again, Mark? No. So to call Mark, talk to Laura, talk to Dylan, talk to the people who are in these things. And again, when we were starting out, there was a buzz in the orchestras. People talked, they weren't afraid to talk. And I think, you know, I say this to everyone here, I think that's got to stop, this kind of, you know, intimidation or anyone punishing or someone not going to hire you because they feel this way or that way. That's not okay. I mean, now's the time for us all to work together as a community. You know, we're all competitors to some degree, but we also need to be helpful to each other. And, you know, I think the old days are gone, and we have to look at this in a new way. So that's just my take. And I agree with you, Reggie Wilson, wherever you are. Did he leave? Okay, Reggie, you know, look, we need to dialogue, and we need to whatever it is, we need to do something and adapt as we go along, or we're going to just wait like everything else we do that I've seen in this union before you, Mark, that, you know, nothing gets done. So we got to do stuff now. And so I encourage you all again to take action. You guys have been here for a long time, and I appreciate it. Does anyone have any other questions? Errol. And Blake, I got you next. And Laura. Sorry.
Hey everybody. I got two quick things. I want to like really bring up the point that Wynn just made about just like simple language of words. Is there something that the AFM, RMA, or whomever can make, or if it does exist already, just let us know, where we can find answers to simple things like what's a signatory, or why am I joining the union? Like, what's this gonna do for us, or what can I do to help? Like, as a young person, I feel very lost at every single meeting or every single gathering because I don't know what to do next, right? Like, people always say, oh, like, we're gonna do something, or we're gonna meet, and we're gonna create. And then I go to the next meeting, and then I feel like I hear that again. And then I go to the next meeting, and then I hear that again. So I would love to know, like, with the two words up there with next steps and RMA and AFM, like when it comes to the Special Solutions Committee, like, how often are they meeting? Like, can we get an email about that? Got 6 emails about this meeting, and I was so excited because I got 6 emails, and I was like, whoa, something's gonna happen today, because I never get told, you know, so many times about something that's gonna happen.
I'm obsessive, I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. So, yeah, like, that's a really big thing, is like, I would love it personally. I can't speak for everybody, but I know that I would love it personally if I was bombarded with emails talking about how we're getting work, or how we're going to get work, or what can we do to get work, when the people that are meeting that are trying to get work, when that's happening. Like, I would love to be bombarded with emails and information about how, yeah. And then the second thing.
Can I say something to that point? And I mean this. I remember we had the Solutions Committee. There was a meeting months ago, and nothing ever happened, right? I mean, we've talked about this. It's you and anyone else here. If someone's not calling you back, you need to call them and call. Reggie said it best. I mean, you got to annoy these people so they'll finally give in and talk to you. And you just have to keep going, because I've experienced it myself. I can't even get people at the union to call me back when I'm asking about contracts and and things. So you have to just push them and push them.
So can I ask you a question, Errol?
Yeah.
If we have a couple of panels, a couple of meetings with panels at the local, where we have people explaining stuff about the contracts, would that interest you?
It would definitely interest me. I would show up. I don't know if others would, but I would. Yeah, because I'm interested about this stuff, but I also understand that I'm interested because I get it. I get why, because I've been lucky enough to work. But for some of my younger colleagues that don't work at all or would love to, like, we don't understand like what all this is about, because there's no language to help us understand what this is about. We don't know if it's okay to walk up to our older colleagues and talk about this. Are they friendlier about that, if at all? I'm just saying that because it's the truth. I feel like we're a little bit more divided on that than maybe we understand. I'm just saying that's a little bit about my experience. I know a couple of my friends who might feel the same way. Just don't like know how to navigate. But I feel like it was important for me to say that because it's the truth.
Yeah.
And then the second thing. No, yeah, I said it already. All right, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Communication from us to turn you out to things, because you're gonna get bombarded.
Blake Dealing. I'll stand here because I'll be able to post it in this spot in this room. I have a simple question, which is why is the rate so low? It's shockingly low. I thought that we were gonna be asking for like double or triple.
The rate for the
Yeah, it's
proposal?
like barely over London and there's no travel costs. And so why is the rate proposed to be only 4?
Again, these are proposals. We looked at, I think we came to, it was 15 or 18% difference.
It's basically a approximate conversion from London. But however, there are also the other things on top of that, the contributions.
Yeah, so you
that,
add all the
you know,
stuff on top of that, Blake.
That's what, to be competitive, it's like it has to be closer to that scale.
Yeah, so we tried, we lowered.
But are you figuring in no travel costs for the 17 people from Apple that would want to go? Just have a trip to London?
I mean, again, that's something that can be brought into play, but if you just did apples to apples with wages and what it is, that's what got us to where we needed to get, because there was pension, there was health and welfare, there were taxes.
Payroll
everything else.
taxes, are big,
So, so again, we don't want to come out with something, and again, per Reggie's point, maybe it's something that we can negotiate. And I mean, I will say this, sorry, Mark, I'm going to say this. In non-union settings, I'm able to negotiate things that I can just say, we want this or we want this. And that's kind of what we need. We need to be light on our feet, to Reggie's point, so we can negotiate as we're going along. And I love the idea, Reggie, of what you said about, maybe with a company, you do a 2 or 3 picture deal with them at this rate, and then you renegotiate. I think that's how I do business. That's how most people do business. So I think that's the way we should do it. But I agree with you, Blake. I mean, sending 23, another composer talked the same thing about all the executives who fly over and stay first class, travel business and stay in these nice hotels. But again, I just want to make sure we can bring something successful to the community. So again, this is just.
No, I fully support that. Just for those of us who are fighting for you guys in these, on every project we do.
Yes.
We only have to fight the residual fight. So if you said go in and fight for $750 as a rate, you're like, great, I'll go do that. So just to think about it, we're too low.
And just to clarify, again, this is, again, I think the thought is what is the competition, and we're going to not just match that, we're going to try to do better than that. That said, this was no conversation with any bean counter. So no one looked at anything or came to us and went, yeah, I'd pay that. No, this is us looking at what the competition is and at the very least doing better than it. I have no problem, double, triple, whatever. And it could, whatever the market will bear. But the market has not yet seen any of this, and that's where it's a very good point. Yeah, maybe we come out swinging with double that. And it's still enticing enough with the corporate buyout of sorts or all the other metrics that could be possible that they go, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. But just to clarify, it was simply our opinion based on what our competitors were charging and the players overseas were getting, not what we somehow only deserved or not what any one executive said, yeah, that works for me. Not at all.
Laura, you have.
I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to kind of expand upon what people are very, I'm so thrilled that you've been speaking about the role of the RMA in all of this. So I just want to kind of expand a little bit upon that. First of all, could I have our board members who are here today stand up? I didn't actually do that to get applause, but thank you. I'd had them stand up so that you can see who they are and you can reach out to them. We have a bunch of people who are not here tonight because they had other jobs. Peter mentioned Dylan Hart. We have Irina Voloshina. We have Aaron Smith. Guys, help me out here if I'm spacing on anybody. David Horn, another music prep person. We've, sorry, am I leaving anybody out, or have we? Alan, I'm getting to the international, but yes, he's in our local chapter too. Blake Cooper, sorry, I'm really bad at coming up with lists off the top of my head, but we've been really strategic about making sure that we have people in every section. We've been trying to have a range of ages and experiences because we want to provide a little bit of structure to these kinds of conversations, the conversations that the rank and file have, the ones that usually just kind of happen at the lunch tables, and this gives it a little bit of organization. So I would, as everybody said, I would really encourage you to reach out. I would encourage you to come to meetings. I would love it if you would join, because this is what gives us our power. We can't just do it randomly. We have to have a little bit of, and it's a little bit, annoying to have the structure and all of the boring agenda items and all of that, but it's an important structure. We also have the RMA International. Alan Fogel, our local horn player, is the new international president. He's an amazing guy. He's going to be in charge of kind of roping in all of the chapters from around the country and trying to get some new ones. We're looking at all of the places where there are, recording pockets in the country. And then, just another thing I want to say, RMA has, I didn't really know what it was when I first started working in this business. I actually was on the board before I really understood what it was, to be honest with you. And so I would just really, like I said, encourage you to come and talk to us. There's a little bit of a history. People think we are elite or that we have an agenda. I can really assure you that that is not the case. These are volunteers from our rank and file that we are doing our best to represent. And we have to hear from you to know what it is that we are bringing forward. So please do reach out. I'm not going to give my phone number out right now, but I am in the union book, as are
You can give
all
Mark's
of the rest
number
of our...
out, it's okay.
I actually don't have that memorized either, I'm happy to say. So anyway, thank you for everybody who's mentioned this part of the process. Oh wait, sorry, one more thing. The Strategic Solutions Committee that Dennis mentioned before, is there anybody who's not on the board who's on that committee? I think there's a couple more of you. Errol, Steve, Zach, Dan, okay. So please talk to them as well. I can promise you that all of these ideas that are here tonight, we are gonna be discussing. We don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. A lot of this is speculation, but we do have really good research. We have good research. We will be doing research. We will be crunching numbers, and we're just going to try to take a practical approach and try to figure out what is going to be beneficial to us, in a way that we can still make a living as musicians. We can still afford to live in this very expensive town and pay increasing healthcare costs and cost of living expenses and all of that stuff. We are going to do our best to make whatever your take-home number is the best that it can be. But again, it's hard. It's hard to know without quite a bit of work. So we're going to be doing that work, and I promise every consideration that's been raised tonight and every consideration that people bring to us will be discussed to the very best of our ability.
Laura, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can we count on you and the Solutions Committee to take the incredibly amount of hard work that this whole group has put together with this proposal? Will you take this proposal and look at it with your team and make a commitment to the group that's here that you will come back with some counter proposals or something to share, so this just doesn't become a meeting like every other meeting and nothing happens, because I think that would be a crime. And so since you're a leader in this group, and as is Byron and other people, I would just ask, we're not hiding anything like this anonymous group that sends out emails. We're trying to be straight up with everybody, and that's the point of this. So I would ask that you would take this proposal, cut it in millions of pieces, do whatever you want, but come back to this group or these people and say, here's what we're dialoguing, here's what we're doing, because if not, this just dies here and there's no point, and we'll be back here in 2 more years when I'm sure everyone heard that Radford now is foreclosed. There's going to be more of that, and so this is a very pressing thing. This is very urgent. So whether it's like we disagree with it, or we love it, or we love part of this, I would just love to have some accountability that you guys can come back and you set a time, whether it's 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is, that you come back to this group and you explain to us what the next steps are and where you guys are with it. If you would commit to that, I would appreciate that.
We'll do our best. I mean, like I said, the calculations that are involved, and you guys have actually done a really amazing amount of the calculations, and that's very helpful. And I think, Phil, aren't you kind of driving that part? Maybe we should.
I'd be happy to
we
talk
should
about it
chat
more,
about that, because again, it comes down to what is going to actually be beneficial. We can say, oh, let's make this change, and we'll have all of this amazing work come in, or whatever. We have to kind of crunch the numbers and see if that's really going to happen. And it's the similar thing like Mark was describing with the Netflix proposal. That is a really rational look at something that we would potentially give away, but might bring in more than we lose. But it's just hard to know until you do the numbers. So yes, we will look at it, take it seriously, and come back. I don't know that it will be quite as speedy as you like, but we'll try.
Okay, well, I just, like to Reggie's point, I mean, something needs to be done, and I just hope that you guys can move quickly on it, because that's not typically what happens. We've been waiting months and months for things to happen, and I know a lot of people have been trying to talk to the Solutions Committee, so I don't want to get in an argument with you here, but it's very frustrating when people put a lot of time and energy to try and help this community, and our leaders just sit on things. So I just ask you and whoever's involved to this is a serious matter, and it really needs the attention. And so I will commit, we'll do anything we can to help stand alongside you and support that. But I just would love to, I don't want this to be, January of next year and we still don't have any answers.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question just specifically? Like, when this meeting you'll have with the Special Solutions Committee can happen, or like when we can have an answer about, just like a general, like March 1, or I'll reach out tomorrow, is there a when that we can know when this meeting with you and the Special Solutions Committee will happen?
Are you talking about the next time the committee meets, or are you talking about when we come back with some feedback on this specific proposal?
Both.
I don't know the answer to either one. I mean, one of the problems that we have is that the chair of that particular committee just had a baby, so things have been a little bit stalled. But we are having a board meeting on Sunday, and any member is welcome to come. And I already have it on the agenda to talk about this town hall and talk about some of the ideas that have come up. So that's going to be when it starts. And it's not my position to say when the committee will be meeting, but I can certainly check in with the chair and make sure that happens as soon as possible. Did you have any more?
If they're not meeting, what can we do to get them to it?
Talk to the individual members. The chair of that, I'm not trying to be, oblique here. It's Dylan Hart, and he and his wife just had a baby a couple months ago, so it's in process.
Hi, I have a quick question. I think it's related to what Earl said, and also for you. It's about timelines and urgency. It feels like there is a consensus that we're in trouble, but then the solution doesn't seem like it has the same urgency as the problem. So I'm wondering what the younger contingent here can do to speed things up. If it's a manpower thing or a person power thing, I run a company that has employs a bunch of people that can run analysis on all these things that we need to calculate, right? What can we do to use tech, to use 2026 to our advantage to actually get this ball rolling and have an answer in 10 months?
So maybe I could ask one question for how many RMA members are in the room here?
That actually gets to my next point, though.
So,
if we're not an RMA member, can we, for example, with 5-4 Beck, can we participate in the conversation? How do we open up this conversation to people that are not part of the union? Myself, I'm 5-4 Beck.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a problem. So you can only be a member of the RMA if you're a member in good standing, but doesn't mean you can't have dialogue with people. But I would say everybody here who's in the AFM. When I asked how many RMA members, I would have liked to have seen many more hands go up. And so the thing is, if you're a member, you have power, you can vote, you can run for positions, you have some pressure. I understand, that, if you have BEC status, you don't have quite, that's one of the problems with BEC status is you don't have the same kind of voice. So, I don't know, but I think that joining the RMA is a good thing, and I think expressing your opinions and having there's a lot of different committee members here, so tell them what you want. I think that's really what it comes down to.
What does joining the RMA do for me?
It's a good question for all.
No, it's and I'm happy to. There are other people here who are more current. I spent a lot of years, proselytizing for the RMA. I don't feel bad about telling you what's in it for you. It's a voice. Before the RMA, I will say that the union basically could, they would do what they think was best for us, and they would tell us here's what you got. It was the RMA. It says we want what's best for us, and we want the union to do what's best for us. So it gives you a voice. It's part of the democratic process. It's messy, it's hard work. It doesn't happen by itself. So part of it is what you want to bring to the party. It's not just what the RMA does for you, but do you want to have a voice in your business? Do you want to participate in it? Do you want to participate in the democracy? If you want to affect the change, that's what the RMA does for you. It gives you a path to affect the change.
How many contractors are in the RMA?
How many contractors are in the Army? I don't know. I have not been in sort of.
I'm just wondering what the makeup is of a group that is the voice of all of us, I guess.
So maybe Laura or Mark, maybe you guys know how many. I don't.
I think a better question is, who has a voice with the AFM? It's the AFM that's the bargaining agent that both bargains with the APTP, with the signatory companies, and also it's only the AFM that can take any of this action.
Sure. We
can't independently of our larger union. So I think the better question is, who has access to the AFM and what's the standing from the perspective of the AFM? So if you're in the LA Philharmonic, or if you're in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, part of your ability to have a voice in how the integrated media agreement is negotiated, any of these larger issues, is through ICSOM, not directly between your orchestra and the AFM. And likewise with RMA, that's the voice that the AFM listens to in the context of issues relating to recording musicians.
And Mark, I'm just going to say this because I can. I'm a back status person because we know why. Because the union was punishing, it was a different union. And I haven't rejoined the union. And I think a lot of people are afraid to join the union because they have to make a living and we have to do non-union work in our city because there aren't agreements or things like this in place that bring work. That, like I said, this could eliminate the non-union side of it. So as our president, if I rejoin the union tomorrow and join RMA tomorrow, what promise do I have and what promise do these people have that no one's going to come and harass our clients or harass me if I do a non-union session? Because I commit to it right now. I will do that if you can guarantee that you will not come after anybody here or myself. Because I was a huge supporter of the RMA. I was a huge supporter of the AFM. And I still am. I'm the only idiot up here trying to help this group. But, look, I would love to join it, but I don't feel safe.
I really appreciate your asking this, and you and I have had this conversation, and I want to make a commitment that this local and this union is not going to be treating with people in a punitive way, that we are not going to be busting people, that we are not going to be approaching any of our problems from that perspective. I have to say, it's an absolute commitment. The last thing in the world that I want is for anybody in this room or outside of this room to be afraid of me, to be afraid of our union,
or to feel uncomfortable about being amongst us. That to me is the kind of the highest level of what it means for us to have a union. Every union has to have disciplinary action available to it in the case of, say we went on strike, which is not going to happen, and somebody crossed our own picket line. I would argue in favor of something in that case, but that's not where we're living. And I can promise you that when people are doing cash dates, when people are doing the things that they need to do to make a living, we are not going to be treating with it in a punitive way. I would be thrilled and honored if you would rejoin our union. It would strengthen all of us.
I want to speak to that somewhat too from the international perspective. So the first thing I want to say is these are actually determined by the local, but outside of the recording work that we're doing, my charge as organizing director has been, and we've adopted a strategic plan which says the biggest growth area for us is actually in freelance and live music performers, basically the people that we lost with the Caribe Hilton decision, what was that, 4 decades ago? Yeah. And there's no way that we can organize independent gig musicians in the world and that we can credibly say to them, we want you to join our union, but if you're going to go take a non-union gig, then we're going to punish you. And it's just, there's no way that we can do that. And it's the reality of, because the AFM wants to be the union for everybody who's trying to make a living in the music industry. And we want to refine the industry to do that and reclaim where we were 50 years ago. Not just for the music industry, but for the entire labor movement. And I just have to say this, that the threats that are faced to what it's like to perform as a working musician are so great with things like machine learning and artificial intelligence that if we don't have all musicians banding together to try and fight this, regardless of whether they work in film and TV, or whether they're theater musicians, or whether they're freelance musicians, we're not going to, there won't be people making a living in 20 years from music, because it'll be done by AI.
I appreciate you saying that. Well, look, I mean, I would say this to you, Mark. I'll say this to you, Gabe. And I'll say it to anyone here who's in the same place I am with the Phi Corps because you're afraid. We just heard them say they're not going to come after us. So I'm going to take that at face value. So I'm willing to rejoin the union tomorrow. Yeah, I guess I have to wait till Monday, but
Martin Luther King Day, actually.
Mark will sign you up right now, though.
Tuesday. But I want to say one thing. I hope that everyone here, because I am for you, Jules, and other people, that you would follow suit. Because
I'll do it with you Tuesday. If that's the commitment, I'll do it. Deal.
And I want to say, as someone who has climbed up through this industry, not asking for any of this, I came to Los Angeles as a composer. Opportunities were given to me, which took me down a much different freeway, but I've still had the most incredible experiences in the trenches with amazing composers. But there's one thing I've learned, whether it was back in the day where every day I was worried about the bills, young children, every month it was the rent, it was health insurance, it was this gut-wrenching fear every morning waking up worrying about the bottom line. I know this for a fact, and this doesn't change. The loyalties of players, professionals, composers are not to any one union. They are to their kitchen table. That is their number one loyalty. And I hope the unions and the leaderships and the guilds never forget that in the end, when push comes to shove, that loyalty will be to their family, their bottom line, and their kitchen table.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to talk about accountability. I think that without tangible action, accountability falls flat. And I have a challenge for the AFM and the RMA. Once a month, you send an email to all of us of all the topics that you're working on as paying members into the union. You advocate for us. And to have a list of topics that you're working on and what's been done. and ways that we can all get involved. Even if it's something as small as, I made a phone call and I'm waiting to hear back on your behalf. I would love to see some measurable accountability that is in an email form to all the members.
So Matt, you have been so active, and you and I have been in conversations for I don't know, more than a year, and you've been such a great contributor. One of the things that I think would be really helpful is I would love to invite everybody here, and I think it'd be beautiful if everybody here is a member in good standing, but everybody who's a member to observe Local 47 Executive Board meetings, where we talk about the things that we're doing every day of every week, and we talk about it in ways that anybody can log on and observe and hear, and we're going to change things a little bit so that people will be able to comment and it'll be a little more participatory. But that's a great way of kind of hearing what goes on the ground on an ongoing basis. And you're right, we need to be held accountable. I want to be held accountable, and I want my team to be held accountable, but people need to come in the door. So I have to say, I am so uplifted by this. I really appreciate it.
Don't worry, we'll be done by midnight, I promise.
And then we're going to Cheesecake Factory, remember?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you all again so much for putting this on. This is really so necessary and beautiful. Just in the spirit of project management, keeping the ball rolling, I'm wondering, regarding next steps, would you all feel comfortable sharing? I know some of us were taking pictures of slides.
Yeah.
Once this goes out, I'm sure we all know somebody we probably feel comfortable approaching with ideas, but just if there's anyone who isn't or just is looking for an easy target, I wore a big red shirt just to be real obvious today. Feel free, if you have ideas right now that you'd like to contribute or any thoughts about edits. I know Blake had, I think he's over there, had some thoughts earlier. You know us, but just to get the ball rolling, my email address is sydney.hopson@gmail.com. That's SIDNEY.HOPSON. If you just need somebody, if your finger is burning a hole through your phone right now, in the interim time while we're planning our next meeting and getting schedules together, we can still keep the ball rolling. So if you have ideas right now, or in the next day, you wake up tomorrow, just send it in now, because the sooner we have these ideas compiled for potential counter proposals, the sooner we can start getting to work researching them, the sooner we can report back to you on our findings. So just, if nothing else, if you just need a person that you know for sure is just going to take all these and make sure the board gets them, I'm happy to run point on it. You've got my name, Sydney Hobson. If you didn't, now you do. Yeah, we're looking forward to receiving everything you've got just as well. Again, like I said, in the interim until we have that meeting booked, which I'm sure will happen soon, we can just keep the ideas coming. Right?
So Sydney, here, so the plan is exactly that. I think that's a great idea. What we're happy to do is provide, a copy of this and a copy of the actual full proposal to Local 47 and to the RMA. We're not comfortable making copies and sending them out to everybody, because what happens if we send them out to kind of randomly, they have a way to get out on the street, and somebody looks at a proposal and says, this is gospel, and we're off to the races and all that kind of. So just from experience, we know that's. But in terms of providing copies to the committees and to the leadership and the committees, absolutely, and we'll do that as soon as possible. And I'd say, to echo what Peter said, we're also available for any consultation, for any research. We're happy to share whatever research we did, answer any questions, and work through the process with everybody. But it really, this is meant to be a handoff. This is not, for us to dictate. This is really for us to hand off to the appropriate people. So we'll definitely make copies and have that available to you guys like ASAP.
Excellent, thank you. And just with that, I think that's perfect then, because either way, I think any ideas you have now until that point, still just there's no need to wait. So for those of us, especially lucky enough to be here tonight and to kind of hear it straight from you all, we can keep the wheels turning right now. So there's no need to wait, is the moral of the story.
Thank you, Sydney.
I promise this will be the last thing I say. Liar. Errol, Winton,
I'm so glad that you guys asked the questions that you did, because what that does is signal to me that there's a need for education, especially about the nuts and bolts of our contracts, because in order to actually participate and understand what you're reading in these 196-page agreements, you have 197. You really have to understand the nuts and bolts of it. What is a signatory? What is a payroll assumption agreement? Anybody in this room that knows me knows that I can talk for hours about it, because I love to educate about those things. It's one of my favorite things to do. So what I ask is, Mark and Laura, please, as a musician, as a payroll owner, as a contractor, utilize me. I'm there. I want to be a vessel of information, of experience, and be able to share that with our community. And I'd like the platform with the AFM and RMA. So please, please.
Also, I just wanted to quick thank you so much, Tim, and I couldn't agree more. I also wanted to make sure, I know it was a bit glossed over earlier, but a very big thank you to the music prep community, because they met independently. We reached out to all of them because, again, this is not we want dialogue, communication, and we don't want to make proposals on things that aren't really our lane. So we reached out to the music prep community, many of those members, and we thank them so much for the time that they spent on multiple times they spent looking over current agreements and making proposals as well as to how things could be simplified or things that might be completely antiquated, when this originally was done, and just really trying to bring things. This is really just trying to catch up to where our industry is, where the metrics are, where the business is. And again, it's got to make good business sense. So thank you again to the prep community, who themselves came together, and really was a great time for them to talk amongst themselves. Yes, as Peter said, by the very definition, we are competition, but if there's no industry to compete in, what's the point? So thank you to all the music prep community, because it does go deeper into those details that can be shared with the RMA and the AFM.
Gail had a...
Lauren.
Really quick, just to echo what you guys were saying about next step stuff, because I'm really want to help and try to be involved, because thank you guys so much for all this research, doing all of this and presenting it, because it feels like this is the way to get back to work in these proposals. I don't even know the verbiage. So just if there's a way, like what you were saying about sending emails about meetings at the local and RMA, I'll definitely be there, but I also need help with verbiage, because I don't know how to help. And when everyone said to make calls and call the union, I don't know even what to say when I'm calling. So any guidance and help would be really great for not just the local, but the big AFM. And then also the RMA, I had no idea it was okay to be in both. I didn't know what you could be in the, so
we get that a lot.
So anyways, but thank you for doing all this.
I'll help teach you how to lobby me.
but just thank you for all of this, because it's really amazing, and also it's do I join CAPA? What's how do I help this? And so just
Yeah, and we can, and Matt, maybe I can ask you, because you were amazing with this stuff. Maybe we can get the CAPA. I mean, look, this is a grassroots thing, and we're trying, with the tax incentives, it's going to be a grand slam home run. So we're working really hard on it, and I know the RMA, hopefully, and the AFM will be part of it. So, Matt, maybe you can send out some kind of thing, to everyone. Thank you. Gail Lavant, who used to own this studio.
She still does.
Well, you own it, Gail.
I'm still Mama Evergreen.
Yeah,
Okay. There are a lot of people here today. Tonight, a lot of people that left, a lot of people that are here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
That I don't know, because you're a younger generation. I am probably the oldest person in this room, and I've been in this business now. I'm in my 61st year. And I still feel like I'm 20. I have the heart of a 12-year-old, the enthusiasm of a 20-year-old to get into the studio. This is something I wanted to do from the time I was 13 years old, following in my dad's footsteps, because he was concertmaster in the days back in the 30s and the 40s, okay? So I got to follow in his footsteps, even though he passed away in 1950 and I hadn't even started the harp yet. Piano at 3. So I just want to express to you, first of all, that this industry is a phenomenal industry to be in. I was fortunate, and am still fortunate, that throughout all these years, I made my career in the recording industry. I don't think that will be the case for a lot of the younger generation, but that doesn't mean it won't happen for you as far as having a good income. This studio, Evergreen, is very dear to me. Back when I was in my 30s, with 2 partners, we built this studio. It's called Evergreen. Didn't know that 2 blocks away is a street called Evergreen. We built it. And so scoring stages, at the time when I was working, starting in the early 60s, mid-60s, we had so many scoring stages on the lots. We had Universal, you mentioned 6. I know there were at least 10 or 11 on the major lots, plus all the independent studios that were in Los Angeles. And here we, 3 Pisher people, come along and build a studio with competition that is extraordinary. So what did we do? We had to make our rates equivalent and equal to what everybody else was charging, but the most important thing was we developed relationships. And even though we had a contract for, let's say, a film, which would be, a rate for a film compared to a television, to a record session, to a commercial, to a film shoot, everything had different rates. But if a company came to us and said, we don't have enough money to pay your full rate, can you work with us? Of course we did, because the main thing, and we had at that time a 7-man crew. You had to have the engineer, the assistant, the stage person, the dialogue person, the projectionist, the tech person. Anyway, there were 7 people, and they had to get paid their 9-hour guarantee. But the important thing for us was to keep developing relationships. That's one thing I don't feel our local has done, which is so important. 8 years ago, John Acosta, who was our president, put together a task force of 8 people. I was asked to be on it, okay? Carl, I think, was on it back then. I don't know if anybody else in the room was. And at that time, it was about how to bring work back to Los Angeles, 8 years ago. I owned a studio, so I was able to call all the heads of the music departments at all the studios because I wanted to get their input, first and foremost, so I could talk to this task force of 8 people how to get work back. And the one thing that they wanted was to please get rid of the back end. That was all that mattered at that time. And so I took that to the task force, and they all shot me down. We are now 8 years later. I am still a part of your industry. It's my industry. It's our industry. To hear somebody say tonight that we're afraid to speak up because we might get blackballed or not be able to be called for work is absolutely despicable to me. And I am asking everybody to feel their own inner strength, to say what you need to say, because you need to call all of your friends that are not here tonight, because with strength and unity, we will make something happen. We now have, we have CAPA, which is, I'm just so proud to be a part of that. And we are working to get this tax incentive for post-production, which is vital, because it's not just the back end, it's this tax incentive, and we really need it. And we will get it. We will get that. I'm so grateful to hear Peter say something tonight that probably we've all thought we'd never hear, that he will join the union if he is not going to be punished for doing a non-union date. And to hear that happen tonight, I thank you. I can't tell you how much that means to all of us.
It was a joke. I'm just kidding.
No, Peter, because Peter, you are the person that so many of the younger generation, they're going to follow your lead, that don't belong to the union. I mean, the union has to make money. How do they make money? They make money from the work dues. If we don't have the work here, you don't get the money from the work dues and all the other areas of the music industry, you know, whether it's the symphonies and all of that. But I'm talking specifically about recording. I implore you to please speak to your friends. Please don't be afraid to speak up, because if we can, and England is the one country that we really have to try to bring back a huge amount of the work to Los Angeles. We can't compete with Bratislava. But if we can bring it back, a lot of work from England, that's going to make a huge difference, and it will help save the 3 remaining scoring stages that we have. Warner Brothers was going to close, and it was Clint Eastwood who walked in and said, this stage must stay open. Clint is not a youngster. We can't afford to lose that stage. The millions of dollars that it costs to build a stage like this, like Warner's, like Sony, like Fox, we have to protect those stages. And the only way we can do it is by keeping them employed, you know, with work from all of us, whether it's a 30-piece group or a 110-piece group. The stage that used to be the scoring stage at Radford, Evergreen, when we had it, we took over that stage. That stage had been dormant for 5 years. It was the largest scoring stage in the United States. And Evergreen took it over and brought it back to life, and then we eventually closed our doors. And I'm just giving you a history of who I am in this industry, and I've been here a long time, and I really, really care about it. And Tadeo came and took it over for a number of years. It is now, it has been for many years, the shooting stage for Entertainment Tonight. Okay, now we find out that they're in bankruptcy, right? We can't have our industry, the facilities, we can't lose them. And as I say, I know what goes into building a studio, even though it's been many, many years. We have so many wonderful people that can really lift up this town. Peter, you're at the helm. Dennis, who is a giant in his thought processes, I can't even begin to tell you what a joy it is to work with him. And Jasper, I don't know you, but
I'm Phil. Hello.
Hi. So,
well, and Gail, I just want to say that the whole purpose, and everyone here needs to, obviously you all know this, that without our stages, without our crews, we are done.
That's right.
And so we have to do this rebuild, not just for ourselves, but we have to do it for everybody. And so, to your point, we did film this. It's 17 hours long. It will be available for those who are not here to see. And I will say this, because I feel led to say this, that if there's anyone else who isn't in the union, because we have Mark's commitment, there's no reason not to join the union or to not join the RMA. So I'm asking you, in your solidarity, to step in and join the union. I'm going to do it Tuesday, so I hope they're going to get a whole flood of people joining the union on Tuesday. So I'm asking you guys to
we have a lot to be grateful for. I'm going to turn it back over to Peter and the guys, but I just wanted you to know that if you're blessed to be able to earn some of your living throughout the years in the recording industry in Los Angeles, it's a gift. It's just an absolute gift, and you're recording something that is going to be there for all time. And I'm still excited when I go into the studio. It's like my heart walks in 5 feet ahead of me, and here we are, 60-some years later. And
Thank you, Gail.
You know, and I just have to say that, that Gail has been such a cheerleader, and a lot of this started just both with our sitting in a chair here, during the original town hall, and a lot of what happens tonight really is because of conversation that Gail and I had, and also from time we spent in my studio when Gail was is the resident harpist in my studio, but a lot of that has come, and Gail is just she's also president of ASMAC, so this is somebody who really has devoted a great deal to our community. I just want to thank her for all her hard work.
And I was going to say, although you don't know them, the people that have formed this organization called Kappa they're diversified and they're all involved in post-production in a way, or they're all totally committed to post-production to make this happen. They are so intelligent, so bright. We have the meetings every month at my home, right? And it's just, we just have to make things happen as quickly as we can. So that's it. All right, thank you, guys.
Unless there's any other questions, Paul's asking what kind of cheesecake you want, so I can text him. No. Thank you all for coming. I really, really, really appreciate it. We all appreciate it.